Like every other solo game dev, I have lots of unfinished dead projects. I've made my last game about 8 months ago, and in the meantime I've started around 5 different projects, but this time I've actually managed to complete one. So the question is, what did I do differently that allowed me to finally commit and release a game? For starters, this game is a different genre from my other projects. Even though it's still a first-person horror game, because I love horror film, it's not a classic walking simulator where you have to look for a fuse to put into a fuse box and then a key to unlock a door. Instead, you cannot walk and you simply play by using a mouse. I saw this game called Restock, which is a short horror game about restocking supermarket shelves, kind of like that other supermarket game. I saw it and thought to myself, this is really small scope and it looks kind of fun. I can definitely make that.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
I just need to wrap this game in a different coating, so it doesn't look the same, and the best tool for coming up with ideas is ChatGPT. After some intensive talking, I settled on a game that takes place in a factory. I really like post-apocalypse and dystopian environments, so this is the story that I came up with. You are a slave to the demons, and food at the same time. Yep, that's it. So now that the story is done, I just need a factory.
Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running.
Looks good enough. Okay, so now I just need to make the gameplay. Looking around, interacting with the world, simple enough. And that brings me to my second point. Keep the scope of your game small. This is a #1 golden advice given by senior developers. Making games is extremely hard. How are you supposed to climb Mount Everest if you can't climb your local peak? And with that said, I know that I need a conveyor belt because it's not a factory without one. The easiest way to make one is to use a volume and simply apply world offset to all objects inside of that volume. So I used timeline. Of course, it wouldn't be a minimum wage job without some sort of quota and a timer to keep you on your toes. But right now, these are just cosmetics. So instead of adding more functionality, let's move on to something more interesting. I thought it would be a cool idea if there was a door that slowly opens behind you if you press the wrong button or you don't meet the quota. To open the door, I used timeline. I've played around with the door and the light to make it slowly open and illuminate the area. Making the light red made it much more immersive. Okay, the gameplay is done, or at least 50% done. Let's make art. If you're making games solo, you should rely on other people's help as much as possible, as it allows you to save a lot of time.
Nice.
So that you can focus on gluing your project together. I mostly borrow other people's sound and music, and I should do the same with models as well, but for some reason I don't like it. Anyways, let's make a simple shader, and by that I mean let's follow a tutorial blindly. This shader does color indexing or something, and pixelization too, which I don't want to, so just unplug this and maybe I'll use it later. For textures, I'm gonna use ambientcg.com. To get that nice crisp pixelated look of your textures, you just have to go to advanced settings and change max texture size and enable nearest filtering. Okay, it's getting better, but the level looks pretty so it's time for a timeline. I mean time-lapse.
Never heading south, I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud, you can never douse, not what I'm about, have you...
There is one thing every single retro horror game needs: fog. This is a post-process fog, and that means I have no idea how it works. But it looks awesome. I hopped on Blender to make some items. I tried to keep them low poly, and for textures I grabbed random images and used texture painting. The most important part of this game is the control panel, which is where the player will interact with levers instead of buttons, because levers are more atmospheric. I wanted each lever to have an icon so that it is easily distinguishable. After finding some free icons, I texture painted them onto an atlas texture and used that to display them on the panel, and it actually turned out nice. But it's hard to see, so to fix that I used a emissive thingy on a material thingy. For the quota and timer screens, I wanted an LCD, LED screens, but... What? No! And after some playing around, this happened. Looks kind of like the screen is breathing, and I love it. Next, I've implemented this conveyor belt door, which opens when an item enters the collision box. What? After closer inspection, my first thought was that the collision channels were wrong, but it turns out there was never a collision in the first place, because the collision box was too high for the item. What? Looks like the item never leaves the collision box, so the closed door event never fires. Okay, now it turns out the box was colliding with the door, so I just need to disable the door's collision, and it works. Definitely didn't took me a whole day to figure that out. So if you look very closely, you might see that the conveyor belt is very static. So I just need to plug this here and it works. But I only want it to move when there is an item there. And while it works, there is this snapping bug that is really not good. And I have no idea how to fix this. At first I thought there is something wrong with the UVs. Nope. Still snapping. I found this post on Unreal forum. It explains how to fix texture panel issue. To animate the belt, of course, I used a timeline. To make the lights more interesting to look at, I used exponential height fog with volumetric fog enabled, and also added some chromatic aberration, whatever. With the belt complete, it was time to make some items. Whenever I need ideas, I just ask ChatGPT. Okay, that's way too many items. Okay, I don't have a footage of me making the items or almost anything related to them for some reason. So here are some items in the game, and you can notice that it is quite hard to see what's on the belt. So I've made a zoom in logic, and of course for that I used a timeline. When making this game, I wanted to work on sound effects and music last, so I need one last model, character model, the evil demon that will look over you. First, collect some inspiration photos. I really liked this Black Plague doctor, and I needed some demonic hands. Bruh. I mean, that's the best I can do. Now, for the animations. Just tell me that I can. 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 Okay, looks good. Time for sounds. I mostly looked for industrial/factory ambient sounds. Take a listen to this sound. Sounds cool, but it's way too long, so I just cut it. And it's perfect. Each lever has a different pitch variation instead of a random, so the player can associate the pitch with the lever type pulled. Then I did some polish here and there, nothing too crazy. Okay, back to the demon, or overseer as I like to call him. I need him to walk up to the player after the door opens. So let's start with walking. For walking I use a nav timeline. Really like how you can see his shadow on the barrel, even though it wasn't intentional. To fix the snapping at the start of walk cycle, I just made him walk all the time. Back to the sounds. I wanted to tell a story with sound only. Here, take a listen and tell me what you think happened. Okay, I'm not a pro, I know it sounds bad, but I'm using sound occlusion in engine, so it will be very muffled. After adding step sound effects to Overseer, here's an issue. He's constantly walking and making noise. So I found this thing, it pauses the animation and it's a perfect solution for me. Just pause animations when game starts and unpause when the door opens. Now, what makes a monster scary is the unknown. You don't know how it looks like, how it sounds like, what it does. And if you just stare at it, you won't be scared. So if you look at an Overseer for too long, you will trigger a jump scare. For the jump scare animations, I have used a camera timeline. Oh, and he also breathes down your neck. When you lose, you can still hear the audio. My first thought was to transition to a different level when you die, but that just cuts off the audio completely. Another solution that I tried later was to move the player pawn away from the initial location so that it is outside of the attenuation zone. Of course I used a timeline. With that done, I just needed a main menu, so I just speedrun because making main menus is very tedious, at least for me. With that done, I just needed a tutorial to teach the player how to play, so I've made this absolute abomination. Essentially, a text gets displayed displayed on the quota screen, and if you pull a lever, it skips to the next message until no more messages are left, and it just starts the game. Took me a whole day to make this To add some variation to the gameplay, I have came up with an idea for rotten meats. Each meat has a chance to be rotten, and in that case it must be rejected. When it's rotten, you can visually see it, and there are some flies, particles with sound. The game is done now, it just needs a lot of polish. Different texts if you lose, items have random scale and rotation, you win message, camera shake for main menu has items moving along the belt, package the game, realize it runs on a 100% GPU, limit the frame rate 40%, what the fuck, upload to each, make sure it works 5 times, profit. Let's talk numbers now. I planned to make this game in 1 week and it took me 3 weeks, more like 23 days, but last 2 days I was making each page and some minor fixes, so I don't count it. I've worked on this in my spare time as a hobby because I have a full-time job, surprisingly. Some days I work 3 hours, others 1 hour, others 0 hours, so around 60 hours I would say to make this game. Whether it's fast or slow, I'll leave it up to you. This game has made me zero monies because it is free, because no sane person would spend money on this. Here's some of my stats on each. So as you can see, 200 views, 50 downloads, 0 ratings, 6 times added to the collection, 3 comments, 1000 impressions, and 1% click-through rate. On the first day I got 30 views and 11 downloads because I uploaded this game kinda late at around 10 PM, and the next day bigger spike, and then it kinda just died. Most of the visits I got from the itch using a horror tag, new and popular horror tag, and I got a lot of from YouTube because surprisingly somebody played it. I would probably get more views and downloads if I participated in a game jam, but right now I just want to focus on releasing games because it is a skill like programming, modeling, marketing, or animating. Anyways, that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye!